It is my delight to introduce my friend Nancy, and you could read in the brochure all of her wonderful accomplishments. I'll tell you a couple of the things I really like about her. One is she loves what she's doing as a CPA. She is not only good at it, but she delights in helping people through what she's doing. And actually, I met Hen because she said she came into Nancy in a panic about some financial issues, and Nancy just said, "We can take care of this. Don't worry, it's going to work out." And that's just kind of, she's a can-do kind of person, but she has a lot of other interests that tie in to what she talks about in her work with youth and, of course, with her adorable grandchildren. I'm sure that will come up. So it is my pleasure to introduce Nancy to you, and she can tell you a little bit more.
So Debbie, she says that you have to walk through a door. You kind of have to go through that door of something that is new or makes you a little nervous to grow. Well, I'm really good at talking about taxes. You could tell me just about any business question and I could talk about taxes all day. But do I normally talk about other stuff? Well, not that often. When you could ask my kids, they probably say I talk too much. But John asked me to talk to you about integrity in business. And the first things that fly through my mind when I'm thinking about integrity in business is rule junkie. We're CPAs, right? This is what I do. My husband facetiously thinks it's that I'm a constant pain in the ass, CPA, because I have to follow all the rules. And I've always been that way. Going back to when I was a wee one, I always had to do the right thing. So, for example, my sister and I were running away from home. We packed our little suitcases, and I get to the end of the front walk, and I start crying. My mom says, "Honey, what are you doing?" "We're running away, but I'm not supposed to leave the yard." All right, so it's the same thing. It's following the rules. In the CPA world, we have walls that used to be walls of books, but are now electronic, right? So you can't really have this huge display of rules, but there's walls of books. There's a whole library of rules that we have to follow as accountants and people that follow the Internal Revenue Code. I'm really good at it. I really like it. Pat says I love it. Yes, I do. It's really fun what I do. But following the rules is always a choice. And I think we're all faced with that choice. And a very interesting topic that came up at our table today is really about choice. And you can only deal with what you know in this moment, right? There's a lot of things, especially like the Internal Revenue Code, it's very complicated. And what you know today may not be enough. And you may discover something later that you said, "Oh, I didn't handle that correctly," or "I didn't know that we couldn't do that." Well, following the rules is something that we envision to do. Also, there's a lot of rules in life that aren't completely black and white. We can do this, but we can't do that. I call that black and white. But the Internal Revenue Code has this whole area that we call gray. Yeah. Right? It's not quite perfectly defined. And so, well, what if we do it this way or that way? And all we really can do is based on what we know today. And so I'm totally into the follow the rules. And of course, doing all the right things. Not just because my license demands it, and boy does it demand it, but because it's totally the easy way to do it. If you really think about it, following the rules is very similar to learning not to lie as a child. And you know how your mom or dad or your teacher could always catch you in fibbing, or because they would ask another question and you would totally undo what you were trying to hide, right? You get caught. Well, it's very much the same in business, because if you're always doing the right thing, following the rules, you just tell it straight. There is no story. It just is the story as you perceive it in that moment. So you're never going to get, quote, caught in it. So it's really the easy way to do it. And then, but I think following the rules is way more than just doing it for yourself. I think following the rules is more about surrounding yourself with people that follow the rules. In my business, we have lots of rules we're supposed to follow, and lots of accounting rules we're supposed to follow, and lots of regulatory bodies that dictate rules that we're supposed to follow. And if I have a customer come in and ask me a bunch of business questions, but when I'm asking questions back, I'm hearing that they don't like to follow the rules and that they want me to break them for them, or can't we do it this way or that way, and I ask a question and you can see very clearly that there's something shadier going on over here, they don't need to be my customer. I don't need that customer that badly, because I know it will get me in trouble down the road. And if I'm working with people of integrity, and I know that because for some reason I've been given instincts that are quite honed, then I'll never get into trouble. Meaning I'm not falsifying a financial statement because my customer lied to me. So then they take that financial statement down to the bank and they borrow money against it. And since the financial statement had my name on the opinion letter, and they default on their loan, then the bank comes back and says, you didn't do the statement right. You can kind of see the vicious circle we can get in. And I've never been in that position because I strongly believe in my customers. And if I didn't believe in my customers, I wouldn't be doing their work. So I find it the easy way, truly. But there's something more about following the rules. When you are modeling following the rules, and I have a whole bunch of staff that happen to work for our company, the facts of our company, we've been in Edmond since 1985, and guess what? I've been there the entire time. So I've been part of Dewar Meeks Ekrem for 31 years. So I have had a lot of staff members, a lot of customers through my office. It seems kind of crazy that it's been that long. I'm not that old either. And it's really about modeling integrity. And what does that look like? Because if we have the tone of integrity, then our customers sense it, our staff senses it, they want to do the right thing too. It just raises the bar for everyone to do right by that customer, to do right by the rules, so that it's just a whole, it's just in the room, it just is there. It's like many leadership characteristics, it's the tone from the top. And that really leads me to share with you more of what came to mind when John says, can you talk about integrity in business? Because it's about teamwork. It's about mentoring. It's about being a mentee. It's one of those things that just is or it isn't. I mean, because you really know when you're talking to someone that doesn't pull the shots straight. You just know that. And it complicates life in a big way. So I was sharing this with some of the the gals, we were having tea one day, and she's not here today. But anyway, I'll share her story because it was fascinating to me. She works in international importing and exporting of items. And there's a lot of rules in that arena, and a lot of the companies or the countries that she works with have a different definition of following the rules than we might see here in the US. And she made a choice that she wants to follow the rules. Well, one of her suppliers is saying, well, what do you want me to put on the invoice? Right, there's tariffs. And they have one invoice to get paid and one invoice to show the government officials kind of things. And she says, don't tell me that. I just want you to do it right. Really? Are you sure? And she made the choice to follow the rules. I really thought that was kind of profound because we're dealing with multiple cultures and expectations, and sometimes making the choice means that you're not part of the club. It's not always easy. Anyway, I just thought that was a very interesting story. Not one that I've ever experienced personally, but I know that being free of consequences and future discovery makes my life much calmer. Not always worrying when that other shoe's going to drop, of when you do something wrong, like when you're a little kid going, yeah, I'm going to so get busted. It's the same kind of feeling that you sense as an adult when things are not quite right, but perhaps a discovery could be way bigger consequences than just telling your mom that you were going to be home at 6 and I was there, Mom. Right. Not so busted. I was just thinking a story as a child when I was a city girl, right? Grew up right here in Seattle, and all of my mom's siblings lived in Eastern Washington. And it was a little tiny town, probably most of you have never heard of it, but called Tonasket, and it's central Washington, about 30 miles from Canada on Highway 97. So my sister and I were a year and a half apart, and we'd spend a lot of time in the summer at Grandma's house, and we'd go literally over the mountains and through the woods to Grandma's house. So we had things that we were not supposed to do, right? So we were not supposed to go near the railroad tracks. And if we went to town to the swimming pool, we were supposed to walk a certain way. It was about a mile to town. And we were not supposed to go here or there. All right, so we're in a little tiny town, so we're going to town to go to the pool, and we've got our gear, and we walk into the dime store, and the woman behind the counter says, "You must be Mary Ann's kids." Okay, in the city, you would never experience that, right? Like, who are you? Well, I was a woman who went to high school with my mother. Right? Who would have thought? Okay, so we get home after exploring the railroad tracks thoroughly, and we were in so much trouble because, of course, they called my grandmother. And she knew that we had been near the railroad tracks before we ever got home. Same thing. You never know when the other shoe's going to drop. But us city girls, we really thought, well, what's the big deal? Yeah, well, we were busted. Anyway, same kinds of feeling of getting caught happen as a grown-up. I was thinking about there was something that happened in my professional world a very long time ago, and I was maybe 22 years old, brand new CPA, hired by one of the firms downtown Seattle. It's now part of Moss Adams, and one of the partners, welcome to the firm, blah, 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 blah. And what's this 21-year-old kid know? Nothing. Okay, so I'm sitting in his office, and he says, if I was to give you one piece of advice, this is what it would be. And he said to me, read every day. He didn't mean read the comics in the newspaper or whatever. What he really meant is to read our professional literature every single day. take the time to read. And this partner, he really didn't take much time to communicate with us as staff. We were just, we hardly ever saw him. But that one sentence out of his mouth was really quite profound, and it has paid forward in huge dividends. In that our literature changes every single day, and that sentence allowed me to be and grow and learn in our profession, and keep up and be ready when someone comes in with a rather unusual situation. Good advice. There was another one that I had way back, actually in college, and it was someone who took the time to come to our business fraternity during a lunch meeting and tell us a story. He literally just told us a story. And he showed us how he invested his earnings. So here I was, maybe 20 at the time, and roll the clock forward, it happened to be Doug Dewar. Doug Dewar, who happens to be the Dewar of Dewar Meeks Ekrem. I did end up working for him later and become his partner later, become his boss after that, and now I just watch him sail off in the sunset. But what he said to me is he took a little bit of extra cash, those years ago, pooled it with a couple of his buddies, and started buying real estate. I said, well, I can do that. That's not hard. That totally makes sense. And I remember conning my father-in-law and my dad into seeding my first little project way back when I was 20-something. Maybe I bought my first house when I was 20 and my second house when I was 23. And, that's really seriously paid some dividends forward. And that was just a little mentoring of somebody taking a little bit of time to hang out with some college kids. Pretty cool. It actually paid forward quite well. And in turn, then, I guess we're supposed to give back. And Pat said something about a little bit of adventure that I take with kids. I have a lot of kids, if you didn't know that. I have 2 that I actually birthed, but I actually have hundreds that call me mom. And that has gone back because some elder at church one day said, Nancy, can you advance help with the youth group? What? Okay, so that started a little adventure where we mentored kids, lots of kids. In fact, we still mentor kids. That was more than 30 years ago. And I love teenagers. Some people may think I'm crazy, but I love teenagers. And they still love me. I figured I'd get too old eventually and they wouldn't want me around, but it hasn't happened yet. I don't know if that will ever change. It's kind of unusual. And I think it's pretty cool, so we'll just keep doing it. I have currently Sarah, she's 25, and Sarah has calls me or texts me most Sundays. She says, "There's family dinner tonight. Can I come?" Okay, well, she's not my kid, but she is. And Sarah's an only child, so she's just like inundated herself in our family unit, actually, and she shows up just about every week, and she is fake Sister Sarah to my children. My children are actually 29 and 32 now. And then she is fake Auntie Sarah to the little people. And the little people now have words, so they call her fake Sister Sarah. It's pretty funny. Anyway, the mentoring continues. The mentoring continues at work. It continues at home. It continues just pretty much everywhere I walk. But I was at a retreat a few weeks ago, and one of the women said to me, "Yes, I'm keeping a list of Nancyisms." I said, "What? yes, I'm keeping a list. And I said to her back, I said, oh, that is such an odd change. You know, there's been many, many people in my life that have really modeled and shown me what it was like to be a better worker, a better employee, a better mom, just a better friend. So many people. I said, this is just so, how did that happen that all of a sudden I'm the old one, or the one that you're getting isms from? It was just really kind of shocking to me. But I really think that it is our job to just be part of a team. So I was thinking the other day about this talk and where our place on the team is, and came up with a couple analogies maybe that will help describe a team that works. And one of them was like a lot of gears and shifts and things in a machine. And I'm going, I'm so not mechanical, so this one's hard for me, bear with me. But if one of those gears has a broken sprocket or something, the whole thing doesn't work. And each one of us as part of a team are equally important to that team. Because if one little part is broken, the whole thing doesn't work. And it's true that way in life too, that no one person is more important than the other person as part of the team. And sometimes we get caught up with the boss or the manager or the whatever with an attitude or an ego or something that gets in the way of it has kind of a broken sprocket. The team's not quite working, and my daughter's work teams she has many stories about teams that are a little bit broken and how she just can't work on that team. And it has, my daughter's gift is actually building a team. And she has this innate gift. And whether it was when she was 3 years old, or when she was 10 years old, or when she was 15 years old, or when she was 20, or when she was 30, you could see that she has this natural gift of raising the team and mentoring her coworkers, or her athletic team, or her study group, or whatever, to a higher level. And she just has this innate ability, and I've watched her do it time and time again. She did it with her 7th grade class. She did it again when she played soccer and that team. She did it when she was in college, and she ended up being the stroke for the varsity 8. And it was just this innate sense of raising the bar. She got her very first big girl job. Within the first year of employment, she was named #1 manager in the region. I mean, she just did it. And she says, but Mom, I don't do anything. Really? And then a few years later, she says, Mom, I really don't like that boss. What don't you like about it? And apparently her head honcho supervisor wasn't allowing her to do what she does naturally, right? That little bit of, I don't know what she does, because she has an innate gift of raising the bar. I said, okay, well, you're uncomfortable with that. She says, Mom, I've got this opportunity and I'm thinking about this job. She always calls me, Mom, I gotta talk business, right? She happens to also be a CPA. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, well, honey, can you do this in that job? Would you be able to do that? And literally what I'm asking her is, can she do what she does naturally? Because I know if she can't, she's going to hate it there. And so oh, I'll think about that, Mom. Because she had gone off to Ernst & Young, spent a few years there, had a senior manager or something who was not letting her do her thing, or frightened her, actually, a little bit passive-aggressive activity going on at the tone at the top, and she left. Well, it's not too frequent that the managing partner of the firm calls you in the day you're leaving and gives you a huge bonus. But that's what happened to her. So they actually noticed her gift. So off she goes to the next team. And that happens to be Microsoft. Well, okay, so similar story a few years in. And lo and behold, there's some tone that's kind of itching. So she laterally moves to another department. Day she's leaving, H&R and everybody's having this big hubbub. Can't we give her a big raise and keep her? And it's like, so she's actually really happy right now. I'm hoping it stays that way. And what does she do now? She's manager of their tax controversy department.
Oh, gee. Oh, God.
Does that sound like... Okay, so 24/7 she gets to negotiate with the IRS. I don't know. But she's liking it, so it's okay. And she happens to be the mom of my twin grandsons, so she can do no wrong. Anyway, I remember as a young CPA, I always had to know why. And I'm sure I drove everyone crazy, and it's just part of what I do, is why do you want me to do it that way? What does that mean? What? I don't understand. And I asked why. I drove them all crazy, I'm sure. Why? And knowing why, you take that data, you can roll it to the next project, right? So all of a sudden, instead of asking why on this team, and having people above me and more experienced actually willing to share why, really was helpful. Fantastically helpful. Because if I understood why, then I could roll it to the next job. So I got pretty good at that. And all of a sudden, then I was redesigning all the systems and making them more efficient and getting us to do our work twice as fast. And I remember working for Doug, and he's going, well, this used to take 15 hours to do, and last month you did it in 5 hours and 20 minutes. Can you do it faster this time? Can you do that again? Yeah. Well, anyway, it wasn't always possible because all the little cogs in the project had to fall exactly together. And if one little piece of data was missing, or if one little routine, because I used to write software long before Excel could do it for us, kind of needed to be edited, it would take longer. But he would always like, well, you did it last time. Right, so anyway, I like to break things, fix them, make them better, faster, and that has always been something that's kind of fun for me. But the only way that I was ever successful at doing that is by people showing me why. Kind of fun to do some programming on the side. Have you ever thought about why some people, you just gravitate to some people? And you just want to hang out with them? Have you ever thought about that? What is it about that person? Can we figure it out? Can we emulate it? Because that's how we build a good team. Have you ever thought about a flock of geese traveling, and they're all kind of information, have you ever thought about them? That's kind of fascinating. And what does that mean exactly? And that they show that it's not always the same goose at the front, right? They actually rotate positions. And no one person's more important, right? They get that draft going, and they can travel like 30 times farther than they could by themselves, and faster and all of that. And I really thought that we should think about that, because as a team, we can accomplish so much more. And we're so much stronger than just adding up the parts. So I always think that that's really fascinating too, as we troubleshoot how we can do things smarter, better, and faster. Because of course we're just hourly slobs. We all work by the hour in an accounting firm, and so the only way that we can really generate more profits is do them smarter, better, and faster. And there's another way that we do that, and that is by partnering with other people that know more than we do. And it's not unusual to partner with attorneys or investment advisors or bankers or all those people to help that business accomplish their goal, and get in a think tank with people that are smarter than I am, for sure. Because I know my little niche of the pie, actually pretty good at it, but I don't know Roger's niche of the pie, and he's really good head when it comes to how do you do this and how do you get those transactions to work. So partnering with other professionals or other people in the know is another way to build your team so that you can accomplish way more than just you. Even as a CPA, I don't know everything, and we partner with other CPAs that know way more about a certain little niche than we do. It's quite the specialty, and I'll never know everything, let me tell you. Our wall of books is just way too big. I was thinking about a sports team, and getting a really good soccer goal. Anybody have kids in soccer? Just one or two of you? I was a soccer mom. Really, the Gore-Tex shoes and the rain jackets and the rain coming down so hard, right? I've always been in Seattle. And the kids come off the field soaking wet, covered with mud, and giggling because they had so much fun playing in the mud. Anyway, that's all about teaching kids how to work together to get past the defenders to get to the goal, right? And the best kind of soccer goals in the world is when they don't try to take the shot themselves, but they cross it over and give the ball to their teammate. Kind of fool those defenders. Anyway, it's another thing that we can think about is working together to build a team. And John is pacing, so I have to shut up. But how I want to really leave you today is just to think about the team around you, how they lift you up, how you could possibly lift your teammate up, and that's pretty much it for today. And I didn't talk taxes. That's pretty good.